listening to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
I know we are primarily a WWE show here. We do talk about bits and pieces of AEW news, and I know we got Clash at the Castle, and I know we got Worlds Collide to get through, so we are going to keep it nice and short at the opening of this week's show, and it is still massively developing. We've started the recording of this at 11:16 a.m. NZT on Thursday, and that means that, you know, everything's going to change between now and then, but it seems silly not to at least bring it up. There has been a massive amount of drama, a massive amount of development over on the other side with AEW. Main event of their pay-per-view saw Jon Moxley take on CM Punk for the World Championship. After Jon Moxley successfully converted his interim reign into a legitimate reign a couple of weeks prior, CM Punk comes out on top. Everything looks fine. Minus, you know, the fact that Josh would probably poop all over them for that decision, and I'd have to agree now, definitely. Comes out to the press conference and decides to just absolutely lay into multiple of his colleagues. Pretty much every member of the Elite, Hangman Page, and a bunch of other people, and he's just going off. And all the while Tony Khan just sort of sits there next to him sheepish. And, you know, everybody thought that was going to be the massive drama point of the week. That was going to be where all the clips were going to be. And then we learned that, I guess, when CM Punk says, if you got a problem with me, come and find me, that a few people had a problem with him and they went and found him. And this is where things get really murky. This is where things get a little bit harder, different descriptions, and we're relying on what's coming out through multiple different dirt sheets. But it appears as though the Elite, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, along with, you know, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, it looks like Christopher Daniels, and a few other of the HR kind of people were there with them, go into CM Punk's office, locker room. Some things happen. A chair gets thrown, Kenny gets bit, and all we kind of know now is that a bunch of people there are suspended. Pretty much everybody I just listed. CM Punk's future sort of dependent a little bit. Turns out he got injured in that match anyway, so his championship future is probably going to be slim, if not completely zero at this point. And there's just a whole lot of disarray at the moment. Yeah, that's pretty much the situation as far as we can tell it. Obviously, we do record this before Dynamite airs, so there should be a little bit more, and maybe we've got a little bit more time to give it next week as well. But yeah, I don't know if you want to throw anything in there before we go to Clash at the Castle, Josh.
I will say this. The decision makes sense when you consider who won the casino battle ladder match.
That's true.
It makes complete sense. Yeah, I don't like it, but it is what it is. I don't know. This is like one of those really, really weird situations that everything that was said about Punk from this Triple H 10 years ago, in that in the series of promos they had after he walked out originally, in storyline at least, it's true. Punk doesn't care about anybody but himself, and he's determined to make himself look like a martyr.
Yeah, I think Jon Moxley said it pretty aptly in one of his recent promos. I'm not going to exactly remember the words, but it was along the lines of fragile mind, fragile ego, fragile body. And we've seen Punk now twice fall to injury just when, you know, he's gotten the big piece, and fragile ego seems to be the theme of what's happening here.
Yeah, it's definitely went scorched earth on this, and I do think his days in AEW are numbered, and WWE is definitely not going to touch him.
Definitely not. Well, let's get into some actual wrestling. Clash at the Castle. We've got a few matches to get through. Let's start all the way at the pre-show. You know, we actually got one. I was absolutely shooketh. Almost missed it, in fact.
Yeah. I was watching it with a group, and we were shocked when they said, stay tuned for Madcap Moss and Street Profits versus Austin Theory and the Alpha Academy. I'm like, wait, there's a pre-show match? They announced that?
Yeah, return of the pre-show match, and it's an absolutely clobbered together thing that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but and Austin Theory ends up being on the losing side.
It was a decent match. It did what it had to do. It got the crowd hyped.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a pre-show match is supposed to.
And it definitely accomplished that. But the matches that were announced, that we were expecting, the ones that we were gonna run down, we got our opening match, 6-woman tag team. It is Damage Control, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. You said there was 2 ways that it could end, and you got one of the 2 ways.
Yeah. It was either Bliss was taking the fall or Bianca was directly taking the fall at the hands of Bayley, which happened.
Yeah.
So we now know, at least for Extreme Rules, that we're probably going to get Bayley versus Bianca at Extreme Rules. Will it get a stipulation? We don't know.
Yeah, it's Extreme Rules, so there's always a possibility of something being slipped on in there. We don't need every match to be extreme at Extreme Rules, but let's see how heated this gets. I'm assuming...
We do need at least one extreme match.
That's true. I'm assuming, if anything, this one is more going to be, or the stipulation will try to keep Kai and Sky out of the match.
Yeah, so we'll probably get a steel cage match.
Yeah, something like that, where they can totally not interfere, ever. No one ever interferes in steel cage matches.
Just ask Dexter Loomis.
You're right, that match isn't on the card, so we can talk about it a little bit on Raw. Dexter Loomis continues to just clobber The Miz, and continues to haunt him as we look forward to seeing what comes out of Dexter Loomis. I'm going to skip over the next match because I want to talk to that one towards the end, so instead let's stick in the women's division. Let's go for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Liv Morgan, Shayna Baszler. Nice little 11-minute match.
We got our clean win!
2 for 2 on requesting finishes here.
Yeah, this was the crossing point. If Liv did not win this cleanly, they needed to put the title on Shayna Baszler, point blank, because they didn't. That would have shown if they did any other screwy finish, they don't believe in Liv. So they at least show that they have some confidence in.
An amount of confidence.
Yeah, but still, there's big questions of who is our next opponent.
Yeah, it is a tough one, obviously. Ronda Rousey is still in the wings and does still have a few shots here and there. I would much like it if it was not. SmackDown Women's Division, not the strongest in the world. With this being a clean win, we probably don't see Shayna Baszler come back for another one either. And so, yeah, Extreme Rules could be any number of different matches. We're going to have to wait and see what the future holds for Liv Morgan.
Yeah. Personally, there are 2 opponents that I'd like to see Liv again.
Shoot.
The first is Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
I just
Judgment
don't
Day
know.
can do whatever they want.
Yeah. The other would be Dana Brooke.
Okay. I don't know which brand Dana Brooke is officially on, to be fair.
At this point, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, it's true.
But
no, if you told me Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley was the match, I would 100% be behind you. I think those 2 could put on an absolute banger. Great match between them all. Just the brands being a little bit of a stickler on that at the moment.
Yeah. I personally, if you don't have that for a title, say you keep them separate and you keep them on Raw and SmackDown, then you have to put, then in the next 2 months between now and Survivor Series, you would have to put the title on Rhea to get that match.
Mm-hmm.
Because I fully expect title versus champion matches again. And at this point, it would be
nights off.
Yeah. So it would be at this point, Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair, and who seriously would believe Liv Morgan would beat Bianca?
Yeah, it'd be a pretty rough fight for Liv Morgan.
Yeah. So I really hope that they do drop the title, but to Rhea, because I think that would justify Judgment Day somewhat. Is if you started seeing the members start getting title shots.
Yeah, I think the problem at the moment with title shots is there is just so few of them because, at least in the men's divisions and the tag team divisions, they are all held up in that bloodline storyline. So all we could really see would be them picking up a United States title, or as you say, a Raw Women's title. So there's a little opportunity there, but you do provide me a lovely segue to talk about the Judgment Day match. We predicted the outcome. We were correct with what the slate would look like at the end of the day. We just slightly missed it by about 2 minutes on our prediction.
Yeah. It's fine. The Judgment Day took the fall. The legends stand tall. But at the end of the day, it was all about Eddie Mysterio. So let's be honest. Dominic looks more and more every day like Eddie. He grew out a mullet. Yeah, he grew out a mullet. And he turned heel for what we've been asking for a year and a half, finally, and joined the Judgment Day.
A little late, but I'll take it.
Much to the dismay of his dear old dad.
Yeah, having a bit of a rough time here. It definitely... I'm sure it's not the way that they're trying to portray it, or maybe it is, but it does feel like when he was with his dad in the tag team, he was that white meat babyface. It was, Mysterio. And now that he's turned heel, he is leaning more into Guerrero. If that's on purpose, bravo. And if it's not, then you've made an amazing coincidence here.
Yeah, I think it's intentional to show that he was turning there. Was because of the distinct look of what Eddie had when Eddie was heel. I think they intentionally did that. I'm more interested now in Dominic Mysterio than I was before Saturday. So bravo on that. But yeah, and the whole thing was built on the fact that Ray never trusted Dominic. Ray always tried to protect Dominic and didn't actually let him grow. And kept him in the tag team. So I think eventually Ray is going to have to get over this. I don't want to fight my son. And it will happen eventually.
Yeah, it seems as though that will be coming to a head. Obviously, with Judgment Day now up to 4 in their members. Edge and Ray quite outnumbered. Even with Beth Phoenix joining them, they might need to find another human to head that up. And I honestly, if you put Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio in a tag team, I know we talked about that a little bit last week, could be brilliance there, so slot them in. Seth Rollins, Matt Riddle, third longest match on the card. Nope, I'm wrong with that. Ignore me. Having their fisticuff, Seth Rollins coming out on top, could potentially be our Extreme Rules match.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't feel done. Neither of them were on Raw, largely probably because of transit and stuff from this. But I feel like the finish definitely left more on the table because it was just Matt Riddle getting so pissed off that he lost focus, and that led to Seth scoring the win.
Yeah, we did say we were going to have that classic, somebody tries to use a weapon kind of thing to sort of incite that it was going to be Extreme Rules. It was a steel chair in this case. I think I picked kendo stick last week. But all signs do seem to point to a rematch. Seth Rollins picks up the first one. I'm pretty sure Matt Riddle will end up winning the series. But I've been fooled before. I didn't think Cody would go 3-0, so...
I mean, it was Seth Rollins' first singles win, I think, in a year and a half.
Well,
from what I've seen some references to, it was like 400 some odd days.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. We are roughly the middle of the show. We got 2 more matches of Clash at the Castle and Worlds Collide still to jam in on the other side of our song, but we are going to go into that right now. It is Drew McIntyre's Broken Dreams. What's that match? And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. Let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship match. 20 minutes of meaty men slapping meat. Gunther, Sheamus. We saw the return of Imperium, Giovanni Vinci coming up. There was just absolute pandemonium.
It was a phenomenal match as we expected. These two tore the house down. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They put on a clinic. And Gunther had to retain simply because of the position that he's currently in. And Sheamus, despite really needing it for the Grand Slam title, doesn't need the title for his legacy.
Yeah, as cool as it would have been to see Sheamus walk around with, as you say, that completed Grand Slam, Gunther is doing amazing as the Intercontinental Champion. He's got full Imperium, well, not full, but 2 members of Imperium now behind him, and is really going to be that force to be reckoned with on SmackDown. Yeah, looking forward to it. As you said, these two, Clinic, loved it. That's why I wanted to talk about them a bit later in the show, just so I can, gush over how good of a match this was between these two.
Yeah, just imagine, 2 years ago we were saying, there's no way Walter ever crosses the pond and wrestles for the main roster. And the stuff that he's done since he did make that cross to the come across the pond.
Worth it.
Yeah.
I'm going to park that. I'm going to put it on a shelf. Oh, the opening scenes with Gunther and Sheamus just staring down while Imperium and the Brawling Brutes fight. Amazing. Love it.
Yeah. It was phenomenal. Everybody played their parts well. And at the end of the day, the right person won. And Sheamus doesn't look weak simply because it took 20 minutes to beat him.
All right, now I promise I'll put it on the shelf this time and actually move on. Our main event, the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, 30 minutes. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre got a little Broken Dreams old entrance theme music video to come in. Austin Theory tried to cash in. Tyson Fury knocked him out. But ultimately, at the end of the match, Roman Reigns held both titles high.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Definitely the best World Championship match of the weekend. And for the record, I don't consider NXT World Championship. But it was everything about this match was Drew is on Roman's level. The fact that he kicked out of not 1 but 2 spears proved it. And then
it ended up being that sort of salty finish at the end anyway to finish it all up.
Yeah. And it just, the logical outcome, if you weren't putting the title on Drew, the logical outcome was, well, you can't use the Usos or Sami Zayn. Bring up his other cousin. And that's what they did. They brought up Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, it made a whole lot of sense. I wrote down our predictions for who was going to show up. We were all over the place on this one, but Solo Sikoa we did look at. I think I had him coming in after the match, but he was the final linchpin here. I guess the big question, do you think Drew McIntyre is done, or do you think he gets one more?
Well, I do think he gets a shot at Roman at Extreme Rules.
Okay.
Whatever happens there, I don't know. Because as I said, this match was more about proving that Drew is on Roman's level than it was about Roman just being a god among men.
Not a monster among men?
Well, which did actually return on Monday, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time to talk about that one because we still got NXT, but yes, Braun Strowman returning this week. We'll have more about that next week on the show. Yes, I think Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, both S-tier superstars right now. You can't deny it.
Yep.
Alrighty, well, we got a few minutes left. Let's jump into NXT Worlds Collide. And honestly, I don't want to, but we're gonna rush through a lot of this. 5 banger matches. NXT Women's Tag Team Championship was on the line. Chance and Carter ended up retaining against Doudrop and Nikki ASH only because of the help of Toxic Attraction. And then it was after that, it was all unification matches. The North American Championship as well. Carmelo Hayes successfully defeating Ricochet in the opening contest. Quite a good match, I would say.
It was an alright match. I think it had more aerobatics than I particularly cared for, but it was alright.
Less flippy stuff.
Yep.
And then now we're at the unification matches. I have to double check my facts before I say them. Fatal 4-way tag team elimination matchup. We saw Pretty Deadly, the Creed brothers, Jensen and Briggs and Gallus all go head to head to see who would be the new NXT and NXT UK tag team champions. And eventually it was a heel turn from Damon Kemp that took out the Creed brothers and led to Pretty Deadly holding both titles above their heads.
Honestly, I'm not that surprised. It was an alright match. Definitely not the best tag team match of the weekend. As much as it will pain me to say, that actually belongs to AEW.
Swerve and Our Glory and Acclaimed.
Yeah. This is what it is. It's I felt like they probably had more direction to go with Pretty Deadly than they did with any of the other. So it makes sense to put the titles on them.
I look forward to seeing what comes out of Damon Kemp. I think back at the time it was a little bit obvious that he was the one that attacked Roddy Strong in the parking lot. Now we're going to see what he's going to do here. I think he's got a massive amount of potential on the NXT brand, so I look forward to seeing more from Damon. Triple threat match to unify the NXT Women's and NXT UK Women's Championship. Mandy Rose, Mako Satomura, and Blair Davenport. Didn't go the way 100% expected, but I'm sure you're a happy boy.
It was a fine match. Mandy Rose retained her title and won the NXT UK title. It is what it is. I do have to begin to wonder who can stop Mandy Rose at this point, because she's pretty much beaten everybody.
Yeah, it's a tough
I think
one.
there might be one person she hasn't beaten yet.
Shoot,
Nikita Lyons.
Yeah, that is still the piece there that they sort of, I guess, left untapped, possibly. I know that Satomura this week worked against Roxanne Perez again. Amazing match. Cora Jade continuing that Roxanne fight. Could be something there potentially. Look, NXT and NXT UK merger is really just allowing more talents to come across and be featured. And you see these sort of new matchups and new feuds. Everything's smelling oh so fresh. Although Mandy Rose walking out with the 2 titles wasn't my preferred, I'm sure there is a storyline that you can spin up out of it to give her something fresh, where somebody will eventually take the title off her because she looks unbeatable at this point.
Yeah.
Main event time. 17 minutes. NXT Championship, NXT UK Championship on the line. Bron Breakker defeating Tyler Bate and holding both titles above his head.
Honestly, it was the right call. I think there's still more to Bron in that he needs to learn as the champion. And I think while it might have been cool to see Tyler Bates with the title, you can't really stop the current momentum Bron Breakker has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, like, if you just keep watching this match, you know, they have their respect piece at the end. You look at next week or this week on NXT, and honestly, just watch it. Tyler Bate and Bron Breakker take on Gallus. We got some standing moonsaults in stereo. They're going, and it seems as though JD McDonough is coming out, still going to potentially be that next challenger. I could see a triple threat, but they're not just sort of leaving it at this and moving on. Tyler Bate isn't just going to get shuffled out. So again, look forward to seeing what comes out of Tyler Bate, but Bron Breakker is NXT's number 1 guy for sure.
Yeah, he's just got a little bit more polish and then he'll be ready for the main roster.
Just keep polishing him for as long as possible. Alrighty, well, we have run out of time this week. We had a lot to fit in with Worlds Collide, Clash of Champions, Clash at the Castle. Oh, I messed it up. And as well as some AEW drama, but it's been great talking to you.
Bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D up, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling R&D up, and we will get you next week with all of the stuff that we missed and maybe even an update on the AEW stuff.